guess it's 3 o'clock. And so let me turn this off. Oh, and there's Aaron. Okay, well,
Oh, good. Aaron's here.
so,
Matt should be here. He didn't tell me to listen.
and he's usually good.
I told him I wasn't even going to print them out this
Oh, there is a,
But it changed, so.
oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, here's Matt. You've got a full.
Okay,
All
there's,
right, we have everybody.
okay, so.
And then it won't look so awkward, like nobody, like I smell or something, like nobody's sitting next.
Okay,
You
so,
can smell it. You weren't going to say anything, but since I mentioned it.
okay, so let's call the October 2024 meeting of the Environmental Advisory Council to order. Roll call. John Campbell.
Here.
Bob Howden.
Here.
Aaron Kerr.
Here.
Sister Pat.
Here.
Sam Mason.
Here.
Matt Puz. Freda Tepfer. So everybody's here. Okay. Are there any changes or corrections to the September minutes? Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion.
Somebody second?
I'll second.
Okay. And all in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Public comment.
All right.
Sure. I wanted to.
Who are you, please?
Sorry,
Would you introduce yourself, too?
me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Why don't I'll just come down here since I have two hats on today. Hi. Hi, my name's Jackie Spry. I'm the Director of Planning and Neighborhood Resources at the City of Erie. I'm also the staff lead of the EAC, Environmental Advisory Council. I wanted to, and Cooper, come on up. I wanted to introduce you to Cooper Moore. He's our new hire at the City of Erie as Assistant Planner in the Planning Department. I'm going to let Cooper give you a little bit of his background, but he's trained as an architect, or went to school as an architect, but has a minor in urban planning and policy from Kent State. I don't know. He has come to us with a lot of skill sets that are going to be so beneficial to the City of Erie. We're really excited to have him, and he has an interest in the environment and climate change, and he's already been to the Urban Forest Committee and shows some interest there, and I thought it would be a great way to get him involved in this committee as well. And so, Cooper, would you like to just say a few words? And if you wouldn't mind just quickly introducing yourself, I think that would be helpful since he's new to the committee.
Thank you. That was, I think that covered most of yeah, so I studied architecture. Before I came here, I was working in Washington, D.C. I was the president of the American Institute of Architecture Students, but minored in urban policy and planning, like Jackie mentioned. And then environmental stuff. I was also on the board of the American Institute of Architects in 2023, and I'm leading now a working group for the AIA on climate action for emerging professionals. And I also completed in 2022 a year-long fellowship through Green Roofs for Healthy Cities. It was a year-long fellowship, and I am a certified green roof professional.
What?
Green roof professional. Yeah, so putting plants on buildings. It was green roofs, green walls, all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
And that was really fun, but I think Jackie covered the rest of it, so, yeah.
All right, Matt.
I'm Pat Whipple.
Okay.
Nice to
I'm
meet
with
you.
the Benedictine Sisters in Erie. I teach at the Neighborhood Art House. It's an after-school program, and we have a green wall
Oh, awesome.
that we've had for maybe 6 years now.
Glad to hear it. Nice
And I work with a lot of environmental groups.
And I'm Bob Howden. I am retired. I do a lot of volunteer work, including Asbury Woods, and we have green roofs. So welcome aboard.
I'm Mike Campbell. I was a professor at Mercyhurst University, and we had a green roof on campus, and I had a great time with students doing research up there. So I'd love to see us get more in the city.
My name's Freda Tepfer, and I'm the chair. Personally, I have the first homegrown national park garden in Erie County.
Awesome.
And my first degree's in soil science, and I worked for the U.S. Forest Service and in county government in land use, water quality, and with small quantity generators. On a personal basis, I'm an advocate for pedestrian access, and I'm interested in bird-safe buildings, too, as well as I'm involved with a lot of environmental groups. Yeah.
I'm Sherry Mason, but I go by Sam. I'm currently the director of Project Neptune at Gannon University, and that's my husband calling. So we have a green roof on our library, and just to keep the green roof thing going. But more importantly, my daughter just graduated with her architecture degree and is very interested in urban planning. So I think we have more of an overlap there.
Yeah.
I want to know what brought you to Erie.
Well, I grew up in Erie.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
cool.
Mill Creek, I guess, but
It's fine.
Yeah.
It counts.
yeah. And I'm a
Okay.
new resident of the city as of Sunday. I moved. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Okay. So you wanted to come back home.
Mhm.
Nice. Like that.
Aaron Kerr, of late, teacher at a few universities, teach, develop philosophy of place classes, formerly executive director of Groundwork Erie,
Okay.
which has a new executive director that you'll want to meet, and I'm just glad to be here. Welcome.
Thanks.
Hi, Matt Puz, zoning and development officer at Mill Creek Township. And I stayed at a hotel that had a green roof in Toronto. Yeah. And I think we actually met at the APA conference.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
nice
Cool.
to see you again.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. Thanks for letting me observe.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other public comment or any comment from, I will just mention we have the mayors here, Sarah Peelman, the arborist sustainability coordinator, and Chuck Nelson, city council member. They're sitting in the audience, but I guess they're here to listen. Okay. So old business priority, LCAP priorities, meetings with various government groups. So there was no meeting of the EMTA in September, so I will be either in person or on Zoom during their meeting. I think it's Monday. Anyway, it's next week. Yeah, but I'm on the agenda. Well, they know I'm coming. Yeah.
Yeah, I have two meetings, I think next week too, with the Housing Authority and Urban Forestry, or Urban Forest.
I had a lengthy conversation on the phone with Heather Olson about the Historic Review Commission, and we're going to do it a little bit differently because of my schedule. It makes it very difficult for me to go to their meetings. So I'm going to give Heather some detailed information about or detailed in a capsulated version about the commission, which she's going to put on the agenda for their November meeting, which is the 3rd, I believe. And then if there are questions or is there a need for follow-up, then Heather and I will get together and meet. So that's how we're going to be covering that particular commission.
It's probably the 2nd or the 6th, because the 5th is a Tuesday.
The 3rd, I said, November 3rd.
Right.
Monday, November 3rd.
Oh, is it a Monday?
Yes.
Oh, I thought the 5th was Tuesday. Okay,
No,
never
they meet
mind.
Mondays at 1.
Sorry. Anybody else?
I have nothing to report except that I'm planning and preparing to meet with the sewer authority, and I promise to do that within the next 2 months.
Okay, and then we've got the secondary priorities. You and I have not met since the last meeting.
But we thought we would have a report in November. So we have.
We will, yeah. I don't know about you, but there's been a lot going on in Erie this month, and I think a lot of us are caught up in it, so it'll be,
I can say that I submitted the Community Change Track 1 grant. So it's in the hopper.
That's good.
It's
great.
It's out there. Yeah, it's very exciting. So
I read that proposal, it's amazing.
so
thank you. You read it.
I
was
did.
like one of like 5 people. It's amazing.
So personally, I'm just going to segue back. Personally, I do not believe I am a point person for litter mitigation. Do we have a point person for litter mitigation? You want to be that person?
Heck yeah.
That's so great.
Okay, you got
I
it.
love litter.
You got it.
I hate litter.
Okay, any questions? Moving on, preliminary inventory progress update.
Tyler and James, it's you.
Yeah, Tyler and James. Tyler and James are on the call, and they have a presentation for you today to give you a bit of an update on where they are in the process with the inventory analysis. They're going to share with you, I think, some of their methodology and just explain to you what they're doing. And so. Tyler and James, are you able to hear me first?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, there you are. Hi, welcome. Do you mind just introducing yourself first to the EAC?
There's a view that lets you talk to, show more than one speaker at a time.
They're there.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah, sure. We could give a quick introduction. We have an introduction slide as well.
Okay.
But I guess I'll start off. I'm James Schaefer. I'm a geography student at Penn State, working in the LCAP program to create a greenhouse inventory for the city of Erie along with Tyler.
Hi everyone, I'm Tyler Vogel. I'm an energy and sustainability policy major at Penn State. And like James said, we're partnered together working with Jackie and hopefully all of you all in the future. And I'm from Erie County as well. I live in Green Township.
Nice.
And if you want to go ahead and share your screen now, you should have the capability to do that. And once it's up, I will let you know if we can see it.
1 second.
Okay.
Do you see this?
Yes, we see it, but it's not in presentation mode. It's in your slide mode. There you go. Great. Yep.
There we go.
Very good.
Can we
Okay.
move the pictures out of the way?
All right, so I guess I'll start us off. So hello everyone, thank you for having us at your monthly EAC meeting. We will be giving a short presentation on the LCAP program and providing an overview of what greenhouse gas inventories are. Tyler and I, as we said earlier, we're the Erie team with Penn State, the Penn State Local Climate Action Program. So we're currently working on a community-wide GHG inventory for the city of Erie. And we will also give a preliminary look into some of the progress and results of that inventory so far.
Like we have earlier, I'm Tyler Vogel, and that's my partner James. Hopefully by the end of the spring, we'll be graduating in spring. I have a certificate in electrical engineering. I went to Erie County Technical School, if you know what that is, and earned my electrical engineering certificate from there.
So yeah, I'm James, as I said earlier. I'm pursuing a Bachelor of Arts in Geography, graduating this spring. I have a little bit of an environmental and climate change policy background. I got the Environment and Society certificate and took some classes on the subject. And I also got the Geographic Information Science certificate and the Justice, Ethics, and Diversity in Space certificate. And I'm a University Park student, forgot to mention that.
To start us off with providing some history of the LCAP program, the Local Climate Action Program was initiated in 2019 by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, the DEP, with support from the U.S. Department of Energy. And they aim to partner municipal governments with university students. The program focuses on inventorying a municipality's greenhouse gas emissions and providing the baseline for developing a climate action plan to reduce those emissions and address local climate impacts. Later in 2022, the DEP transferred the program over to Penn State, led by our instructors, Brandy Robinson and Peter Buck, in collaboration with Christopher Naif from the DEP's Energy Office. They partnered with ICLEI to use their ClearPath software for creating a greenhouse gas emissions inventory. Jaden Vasiljevic on the far right there is our program officer from ICLEI, and he's been helping us with the program this year and understanding and training us how to find these emissions and enter them into our inventory on ClearPath. A short description of signs and impacts of the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect is the phenomenon that keeps Earth about 60 degrees Fahrenheit, basically preventing it from becoming a frozen planet or a big ice ball, you should say. This effect is essential for sustaining life on Earth as it creates a suitable environment for living organisms. Looking at the document on the left there, explaining the greenhouse effect, the solar radiation from the sun reaches Earth, with some reflecting off the atmosphere and surface, while most of the energy that comes through is absorbed by the planet, warming it. And while greenhouse gases in the atmosphere help retain that heat. But with human impacts, our actions, particularly burning fossil fuels, have significantly increased greenhouse gas emissions, trapping that heat and accelerating climate change. With accelerated climate change, we will see changes in weather around the world, such as higher or lower temperatures, unbalanced seasons, more rain, and more frequent extreme weather, such as hurricanes and typhoons. As we all know, there's a global problem with climate change, and it comes with its local impacts, as the locals will be the first to likely witness the changes of climate change and the impacts that come with it. Looking at the graph, Pennsylvania used to be well contained with its climate, with average temperatures being less than 90 degrees. But by mid-century, between 2041 and 2070, temperatures are expected to increase and be at a higher temperature more consistently. These impacts from climate change will essentially affect everyone, both in and outside of Erie, especially those with farmland who have, and those who have health issues and those work outside during long hours. As you see in where we are located for Erie, we're more of the mild area, I would say, but likely future down the line, it's expected to become more harsh and a lot warmer.
So I'll just give a quick rundown of the guiding principles of GHG accounting. So the 5 guiding principles we follow are relevance, completeness, consistency, transparency, and accuracy. So an effective GHG inventory for the city of Erie must be relevant to the scale of Erie and also relevant to all the activities happening within Erie. It needs to be as complete as can be, consistent with its methods of acquiring and estimating data, transparent about what the data is of, where it is from, if we have to downscale it or turn it into estimates. And if we have to do that, those may be very conservative about the actual emissions if there is no better data available for us to use, and that's really important to be very transparent about. It is also very important to be accurate, as can be, so we can always take preference. We always try to take preference of the best data available, and if we can't get that data, then use the best protocols given the data situation that we're in. And to calculate these emissions, we take activity data, which is the raw activities happening within the city. So like fuel usage for heating homes, vehicle miles traveled, that sort of thing. Those are the scope 1 emissions you see in that graphic to your right. And then also data on like electricity generation and supply. That's scope 2 emissions. And those, we multiply that with we multiply that activity data with the standardized rates of emission specific to those kinds of activities. We call those emissions factors. And that's how we get GHG emissions. And we calculate these emissions in global warming potentials relative to CO2. This is because different gases have different warming effects in the atmosphere over different periods of time. As you can see, methane and nitrous oxide have a lot higher global warming potentials. But to keep a baseline of the carbon dioxide as 1, we standardize these emissions to that, regardless of what gas they are, and we refer to those as carbon dioxide equivalents, and that's what we will be referring to throughout the rest of this presentation and in the reports. So here is a look at the previous Erie inventory. You can see that transportation is the single largest sector. That is pretty standard. That's the U.S. That's with the U.S. The largest emitting sector in the U.S. as a whole is transportation, and that is often true at a local scale. Below that, you have things like you have the industrial energy, or the residential usually, then industrial and commercial, or the other way around that actually. And then solid waste and wastewater are usually at the bottom there. So these are our preliminary results for residential energy. So you can see that we have the emission calculations for electricity use, utility gas, non-utility fuels like wood, distilled fuel, kerosene, and hydrocarbon gas liquids. Wood and kerosene they're at the bottom. You can't really see them. They're so small they don't really show up on the graph, but they are there. So it's important to note that we had to downscale this data. The residential electricity, we got that from Penelec, but there's some of those zip codes fall outside of the boundaries of the city. So we had to downscale that, and we're a little bit underestimating with that right now because we're still missing some zip codes. And then the other data, we weren't able to receive utility gas data. So we had to downscale that from the state consumption and the counts of houses using fuels from the American Community Survey. And that methodology kind of holds true for the commercial and industrial energy sectors. Commercial, we had to do the same thing as residential. And with industrial, we only were able to do the electricity use. The methodology for viewing utility and non-utility is a little bit different for industrial, and we still need to still need to do that. But the one thing that we need to look into, I'll make sure we look into this. It appears that the previous inventory overestimated the electricity use because they didn't do the same downscaling method as us. So that's something that we can compare to the previous inventory.
Our transportation data emissions were collected from various forms, both on-road and off-road vehicles. What we have so far are the on-road automobiles for gas and diesel. This includes like normal cars, light and heavy trucks, and motorcycles. This data was provided to us from Google EIE, which we then used the tool provided by ICLEI to calculate into vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, for the percentages for every kind of vehicle. For bus, transit, marine, airport, and rail transportation, we haven't quite acquired that data yet, but we'll soon be sending out data requests. Water and wastewater, sorry. We have sent out data requests and have received some back for recording the data collect, but that chart there is still from 2019's inventory, sorry. And so far, should be getting on that pretty soon. But we would be collecting emissions data for supply of potable water, wastewater treatment energy use, and process of nitrous oxide emissions. Solid waste, this is the landfill data that comprises of collecting emissions for municipal solid waste, or MSW, which is like your household, commercial, and institutional waste. That's a variety of materials like food scraps, paper, plastics, etc. But it not including industrial hazardous or construction waste, such as paints, cleaners, motor oil, batteries, and pesticides. Also, be calculating what was in jurisdiction landfills, hopefully, and the combustion of solid waste generated by the community. How's Erie compare to others? ICLEI provides the availability of providing comparisons between other municipalities and past inventories, like we have been referring back to Erie's 2019 inventory to see if we're on the right track, or what needs improved and what has improved or hasn't improved. We chose Bucks County and Lower Macungie to compare to because their inventory was I believe, sent out to you by Jackie. They were some of the best inventories that were taken by the LCAP program. Erie in 2019 was more on the higher end of total amount of metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. But what is most in common is that the top three sectors, the transportation, we have most in common with most counties.
So what comes next? So creating the inventory is just the first step in local climate action. ICLEI's framework and methodology starts with conducting that inventory and forecasting for local greenhouse gas emissions. And then comes the planning, the establishing of greenhouse gas emissions, science-based targets, and developing the local climate action plan for achieving those reduction targets, and then the implementation of the plan and the monitoring and progress of that plan. So I have the steps 2 and 3 kind of boxed out as just planning in general. It's important, I guess it's a good thing to note that creating the plan does not necessarily have to come after setting these targets, the science-based targets. That can happen. It doesn't have to follow this step-by-step process exactly. And once the inventory is complete, we'll be assisting with the creation of the plan through researching and providing recommendations for the city to take to address the emissions. And that's really going to be the bulk of our contributions, probably December moving forward. And that wraps up the presentation. Do we have any questions? We can do our best to answer. If we can't, we can look into those questions and send them to Jackie. And you also have our emails here.
Go ahead.
I just want to remind James and Tyler that y'all have data on buses, mass transit. I sent it to you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I just want to let you know that you have it.
Yeah, we'll have to make sure that fits in with the standard U.S. protocol that ICLEI has in place. That's something we should look into immediately, though. And if not, we'll meet with the programs officer from ICLEI and make sure that we can incorporate that in the correct way, I guess.
Okay. It was an EPA, like it is an the Excel
yeah, okay.
that, well, no, the Excel
Yeah.
file that I sent to you is also
Okay.
from the EPA.
Yeah.
It's just a free tool as opposed to ICLEI that you have to pay for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is the same, it's using the same emission factors, right?
Yeah.
So you
Oh,
should
okay.
have the data that you need within that file that you should be able
Okay.
to import into ICLEI.
All right. Okay.
Did you have questions,
Perfect.
Bob? No. So I did. Well, it's kind of a question statement. So you mentioned electricity. You have residential and consumption, and you have natural gas, which is a huge line, and then you have electricity. But the thing about whenever we show electricity, like your batteries in your cars and stuff, there is a generation, somehow there was power, there is emissions related to whatever it is that makes it possible to use electricity. What is the source that's providing the electricity? What's the power source? And anyway, those are things I hope that you're covering. This is just a kind of a housekeeping sort of note. It's a little confusing because the color schemes are different from one county to the next. So I was trying to look, how come our transportation is so big and the others, but it was just that you changed the color schemes around. So if there's a way to make that uniform, that might be helpful. And then could you talk a little bit more about methane and why you did or didn't use it? I know in conversation here that Sam mentions methane and the waste at the landfill. And, there's also an agricultural component. So where is methane in all this?
Yeah, so sorry about the confusion there. So with the diagrams we pulled that from the previous inventory reports. So we didn't make those graphs ourselves, but that was kind of we didn't really notice that. But the graph, the Erie graph was pulled directly out of ICLEI and was also the one that was included in the 2019 inventory report. So there we can work on making sure there is something more standardized maybe for comparison, but with stuff that was done a few years ago, I'm not really sure how we would do that, but we can look into it. And then with the methane, so methane is recorded. It's just it's standardized. It's made equivalent to carbon dioxide emission. So it's not that it's not being recorded. It's just that it's I guess it's
included with the CO2 equivalent.
Yeah, it's included as a CO2 equivalent. That way, there's just one standard emissions. So there's not like I guess this much is methane, this much is carbon, this much is nitrous oxide. and then you wouldn't be able to know from those three different how the impact that would have, because the impact for methane and the impact for nitrous oxide is going to be vastly higher than the impact of carbon emissions. So it's just standardizing that, but those are still included. It's about the potential, the global warming potential, rather than the specific gas, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And then how do you compensate for, like, there is no free electrical generation of energy.
It's accounted for.
It is accounted for?
Yeah, you have to, when you're putting in your electricity data, it's where is the electricity coming from? That's accounted for in the system. So when they're quantifying the CO2 equivalencies, it's based upon knowing where we are, and therefore how the electricity is generated for our region.
Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, I do. First, I want to thank Tyler and James for their presentation and really appreciate it. And if I missed this, I apologize, but it looks like there's the 2019 data, 2022. I guess, is there going to be like a projection of how the emissions and, for the city of Erie are going, in the future? Like, I guess what I'm trying to find out, is it going to be like a linear relationship, quadratic, exponential? Like, are we, you know what I mean? Like, does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think I think it's good. Probably it depends on what we find. We didn't go that into depth comparing between 2019 and 22s, but I would imagine if there is drastic difference, it's going to be more either linear or quadratic, like you said before.
Okay. Like I said, I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay. So I think that's it.
No. Tyler, James, thank you so much for the presentation. Great job. And you don't have to stick around for the rest of the meeting, only if you'd like to. But we're going to continue on with the agenda. So if there are other questions, I'll get them to you. And if not, we'll see you on Friday for our weekly meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Freda, do you mind if I just mention something here regarding the LCAP, since it's a part of this? We are in the process of pretty much finishing up the P4P grant. We had our last advisory meeting yesterday, and then we recapped with all of our partners who did a listening session. So I am going to be sending you, I haven't sent you the survey results, right? I haven't sent that out. So I'll send you out the survey results from the listening sessions from the P4P grant. They are compiling all of the information, and they'll have a report for us, hopefully within the next month, that you'll all have and be able to review and read. The next part of this, and we discussed this at our advisory meeting yesterday, is what are we going to do next? We have the P4P, we have some engagement there, we have some data that we've collected. We're going through this LCAP process right now with Penn State. What do we want to do? Do we want to go out for another P4P grant, which we can do now, and we have this leverage because we've gone through the first initial phase. For a much larger amount of money that would that we discussed yesterday. That money, this is a possibility. It would be for planning and implementation. We could split the funding in that regard, so that we may be able to still have a advisory kind of or ad hoc committee that is a shoot off from the EAC, an offshoot of the EAC, and but then we would also hire a consultant to really develop the LCAP. We discussed that a little bit at the advisory. Sam was there as part of the advisory for P4P, and just wanted to talk a little bit about that, if you had thoughts around that. Application is due in January
I see.
for the P4P grant for the second phase and the much larger funding. And I can send you some information on it. I can send you what the application looks like. I can send you the inventory, of course, from the grant, and then maybe a little bit of a structure of what is thought of what the application would be used for, what the funding would be used for, if that would be helpful.
So would you and Cooper be doing the grant application or the consultant?
Well, the City of Erie cannot be the applicant. The P4P grant came through CAFE, which is the city's 501c3. So the city is not able, local municipalities are not able to apply. So we would have to either use some other organization, some other 501c3, or one of the city's 501c3s to apply.
Can you talk just briefly, what's CAFE again?
CAFE is the nonprofit that handles the events at the City of Erie. So 814 concert series, and then Celebrate Erie. It's the ability to allow for donations, essentially, and fundraising for those events, as well as grant opportunities.
Anybody else?
They have a board, and
Right.
they have, an executive director and all that.
So it's a little bit, it's kind of not the central, the mission of the CAFE is a little different than, is that going to impair our ability to get the grant in any way?
Well, we were able to get the grant through CAFE before. However, there may be other avenues that we could explore. We do have some better partners.
Yeah, that's-
Absolutely. So it's not at this point, we don't have to go through CAFE again. I think we know that we can apply through the Founders Network through the City of Erie.
The purpose of the P4P stands for Partners for Places. So the purpose of it is to get partners together. So that's why the city can't be the applicant. It has to be partners that support a project that apply.
And for this funding that we received for engagement, the Hammett Health Foundation was our partner. They didn't fiscally give us anything, but they financially give us anything, but they were a partner in our application process. So the same would probably be, true for the next phase. There were several, okay.
Okay, is Crane a nonprofit? Yeah. So I guess my question is this doable within the deadline?
Yes. Oh, we have plenty of time. If we're talking January, we're in good standing that we're talking about it right now. But it seems as if this is a good time to start thinking about it, because we have the conclusion of this grant, this small grant. We've learned a lot through this small grant. The information is very interesting that has come back in the listening sessions. And also, we're going through this greenhouse gas inventory. So I feel like we're positioned at a place that, we may be able to move forward and have more of a decision. We did discuss, just to mention, in the advisory committee, we've talked a little bit about doing the LCAP, developing the LCAP internally, as if an offshoot of EAC, and having a committee kind of take on that. And where in Meadville, they didn't necessarily use a consultant, but they had a dedicated staff person through Allegheny College that really developed and worked with Meadville to develop an LCAP. We talked yesterday about, the importance of making sure we have capacity to actually create an LCAP. And my recommendation, and it seemed like some of the others on the advisory committee, was that we work with a consultant to develop this, because we at the city we don't necessarily have the expertise or capacity to do it.
It's a huge undertaking.
Right, and asking our board to take that on is just, it's a big undertaking. So that was what our recommendation was, is that we go out for the P4P, the second phase. We split it into two different funding avenues. One is implementation, the other is planning and engagement, listening sessions, and that capacity building, and hire a consultant to develop this plan using all of the information that we already have, the P4P and also the Get Greenhouse Gas. Did I miss anything, Sam?
I think you said it really well. Before you started speaking, I was just going to
No.
volunteer that I support us going after a phase 2 for P4P and using a consultant to develop it, because our capacity at this table is severely limited, right? And it is a huge undertaking. It is a job.
You need the infrastructure.
And this
Yeah,
would be used to
so-
like establish the targets, develop the plan, and
Yeah.
move into
Absolutely.
implementation.
And that was the intent in the.
Yeah, that would be
for,
good.
applying for the first round. You have to do the first round of the LCAP, and before you can apply for the second round of larger money anyway.
Right.
So we'll be continuing with that plan.
Is there any way in the design of the process, if we could build in the involvement of the kinds of people like that you've worked with Groundworks, some young people from various aspects of the community to,
That is part of the process.
okay. All right.
Community
And
engagement is
also,
part of the process.
this Environmental Advisory Council will be very much part of that process.
Yes.
So you'll be able to advise and have a voice. There was one other thing I wanted to mention about the grant. It just slipped my mind. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, I'm just mindful of time. We have about 25
Yeah.
minutes, right? So Pat, do you want to handle the next item on
Okay, well, you all got the letter that starts, "Dear community members," in regard to the associate members. Jackie and I worked on this. This is what would go out to whomever you wanted to send it out in terms of high school students, college or university people, or environmental experts, to invite them to become associate members. Those emails, and they have to submit a letter, and those would come to us, and then I would recommend that perhaps a couple of us kind of go through them first, and then we bring them to the board, or we can all look at them. I don't think we're going to get swamped, so I don't think it should be a very difficult process. But I would like to get the letters out, unless anybody has a concern about anything that's written here.
So is this going to go out on a letterhead, or
I
just
was
we're
just
sending
about
them?
to- If you would like, I can put this on formal City of Erie letterhead and maybe put in the Environmental Advisory Council within the letterhead so that it's kind of official looking.
Great,
You can do that.
okay. Any other questions about this?
And I think you can send it out individually to whomever, and then it will be also on the city's website, I believe. Did you say?
Yes, we can post it there, and I think we said send it directly to me.
Yes.
So once I start receiving those, I can then compile them and maybe
And then send
submit
them out to
send them out
everybody
to
to have a
all,
look
yeah.
at.
Okay, great. All right. So we are in new business, right. Item C, statewide annual virtual grant workshop. Is that,
Oh, I think, Freda, you told me to put this one on.
oh, so I must have sent an email with the date for that? How to,
I think so. I know you asked me to add this one to the agenda.
sorry,
It's okay.
Okay, so that is there. There is a grant workshop for recreation and conservation projects. I think anybody can attend it. Okay. And environmental justice and zoning reform.
Yeah.
Who was that?
Yeah, I put that on there. There was I know that I spoke.
I asked you to put it on.
Did you ask me to put it
Yes.
on? I sent out something, though. I received a training or an article regarding environmental justice and zoning reform, because I know Matt and I had some back and forth about this.
Yeah, Jackie sent this to us on the 24th of September.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and then after I read it, I thought this might be something we might want to investigate further. It just said that that they're going to actually look at the entire zoning program, for looking at it in terms of environmental justice and zoning reform. And one paragraph says here, there's growing acknowledgement within the planning profession that planners have a responsibility to identify and eliminate historical patterns of inequality caused by planning decisions and to mitigate the effects of those patterns still felt in communities today. So when I got the, it says the city is currently seeking funding to rewrite their zoning ordinance. That's why I thought if this comes to pass, we ought to have some input into it.
So, for example, it's too bad this didn't come out before we tore the viaduct down, but we did tear down a neighborhood pedestrian access route. I guess that's zoning, that's not implementation.
It's looking into zoning ordinances,
okay,
and it's not something
zoning.
that's happening right now. It simply says the city is currently seeking funding to completely rewrite their zoning ordinance.
Well, that would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
So,
But I think I wanted to put it on so that we were at least alert and,
I wonder which city.
well, we are.
This city is what it says in my email.
Yeah. Is that my?
Yeah, that's your email to
Okay.
us.
So we are applying for a MAP grant, which is through DCED, to rewrite our zoning ordinance, which hasn't been rewritten or looked at in decades. Although there's been amendments made, of course, and recently amendments made to our zoning. And also to look at the SALDO, which is the Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance, which is in need of some, and Matt is shaking his head because he worked in this realm for how many years, Matt? 6.5. 6.5 years. So we are applying for a grant. Yes, you would be very much a part of that. But I think that was there a training associated with that email, or was it just an article?
No, it simply says rewrite. There was nothing about a training.
Okay. So I think it was just something that I came across. But Aaron, we had a discussion this week around the same thing, having to do with Aaron's and the Community of Change grant that Groundwork Erie is applying for. I don't know if you wanted to speak to some of that at all, because that's directly related to this as well.
Well, it would be, if the grant goes through, residents would be collecting data which would indicate the industry's effect on their built environment. And then that data could be used by your office to develop the ordinance change for the zoning. So, the idea is simply that residents are empowered to determine the policy about what's in their neighborhood. So that was the idea.
That's an important piece.
One thing that I've mentioned a number of times as an individual is that the city doesn't have any kind of a traffic mitigation ordinance. So maybe that's something that could dovetail into this process.
Yes, and Freda, that's going to come through Safe Streets. That's more of the Safe Streets for All. Okay. But certainly traffic, parking lots, all of that could be addressed in your SALDO. So I don't know about traffic, but
Right.
Certainly parking lots.
Right, but traffic mitigation would be addressing, developments that create a lot of traffic or affect traffic flow.
Yeah, and I mean, when we first started prioritizing Bob's comment about having the walkable square, and so you'd walk a radius downtown and you park outside. And
Yeah.
that would be awesome.
There was,
And
the
time
Downtown
management.
Development Committee paid for a consultant to do a plan who told them that they shouldn't be doing a lot of downtown parking, and they said, thanks, but we like to do things the Erie way, and ignored them.
On a personal note, please don't get rid of all the meters. That's the only way I can park.
Right.
I can't use a credit card. I can't use that little thingy. And I don't do parking garages, so I need some meters in the city, please.
I've got some.
I go around and around and I think, oh, I can't park here because I have to have that thing. So then I have to find some place I can park. So meters are important.
Tyler is the city's liaison to the parking authority.
Pardon me?
Tyler Titus is the city's liaison to the parking authority, the city
Yeah.
council. Okay,
There's one more.
yes, Sam.
Oh, I was just going to go back. The statewide annual virtual grant workshop is on Thursday, November 7th from 9 a.m. to noon.
Okay. All right, meeting scheduled for 2025. So, how do we feel about keeping this meeting schedule, the third Wednesday?
I'm sorry, I missed that conversation.
Meeting schedule, I'm looking at item E under new business, meeting
Oh.
schedule for 2025.
Yes, the city is currently asking for the schedules and dates and times for all commission boards and councils. So instead of me giving them the same thing we had, I wanted to make sure this was an okay time still, like Freda had asked. And the December meeting falls on the 25th, so we have to decide whether we're going to have that meeting or we're going to cancel it or change it, obviously, to a different date.
Why don't we take a break?
It's fine, we could do that.
Usually, well, today, we're not pressed for time. Sometimes we have been. So that's the only issue about the 3 o'clock time, is that sometimes we are pressed for time.
Does this day and time work for people?
It does, and it brings up a question. Now, I was late one day, and Jackie made mention of a principle or a rule that you have to be here right at 3.
By 5
Did I
after.
yell at you?
Huh?
Did I yell at you?
Well, sort of. No,
Well, I think what we said was if there was no quorum by 5 after, we were going to.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Yeah.
it. Okay, so, this time is fine, and especially if we all have schedules that have been set, maybe this time.
Yeah, I've arranged classes around this time, so I
Yeah.
would prefer not to change it.
Okay.
My preference as well.
And I think we're moving, personally, as well as everybody, I think we're being more efficient with our time as we've gotten our feet wet.
Just to look at the schedule. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to mention, not only is the December meeting on Christmas, but the November meeting is the day before Thanksgiving.
Yes, right, I was looking
So
at
I didn't know if that was an issue for people. I mean, obviously Christmas Day, I assume we're not going to meet.
Yeah,
Do they close early on the day before Thanksgiving?
no, we don't, but we're off on Fridays. But I would suggest that if you're okay with that, we move that meeting on the November meeting. Maybe I can check to see if we could do it possibly the week before, or the week before would be better.
Or we could have a single November-December meeting in the first week of December.
We could do that too.
I don't know if that works for
I can check on both of those and just send out some dates, and we're small enough group here, I don't have to do a doodle poll or
Okay.
anything. So the option would be to have one meeting in December, for December and November at the beginning of the month. Okay.
When would we have to have our agendas ready for them to be on the website?
24 hours in advance.
Okay, so was this one on the agenda, on the website?
It was on the website,
Okay,
yeah.
no agenda.
No agenda.
Yeah, because I looked, but maybe it was too early when I looked.
So one meeting in December and November, beginning of month. If that's not doable, would you want to switch the November meeting in November and then and cancel the December meeting, and we'll resume in
Yeah,
January?
just have one
Okay.
meeting for November and
Okay,
December.
and I'm just-
Whether it's in November or December.
I'm just quickly looking through just to make sure no other dates conflict. It looks like, I think we're okay. Okay, so I will stick with the 3 p.m. third Wednesday of the month.
Are we going to do officers in January then?
In January, yes.
Okay.
Fourth Wednesday, I'm sorry, fourth Wednesday.
Okay, is there anything else?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.